Welcome to Intersection Chats. I am here today with Tamay. Thank you to Tamay for accepting this invitation. So excited about this conversation today.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about it too.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know me, I am Reme Mancera. I am a personal brand story strategist and the creator of the 10 Story Connector framework. Tell us a bit about yourself, Tamay, please.
And then just a little bit about me. I am a social media strategist, and I'm super excited to be talking about content that is really important, especially with the advent of AI and like how do you balance it all. So yes.
Yeah. So let's start. Um, how has been in your own experience working with
Mhm.
clients? How has been that intersection between personal brand story and impactful content?
hmm I think one of the important things, especially now, especially with AI, is that your personal brand story is the authenticity. It is the part that makes your content impactful because now everybody can have a pretty sentence. Everybody can have grammatically correct paragraphs. Everybody can have that now. And so the part that makes it interesting and beautiful and something that people are really curious about is your personal brand because that comes from you, your lived experiences, your life. It can't be made up. You had that experience, and that's the part that people can really connect with.
100%. And for me, I feel like I always said this is like there could be more people offering something similar to you,
hmm
but no
hmm
one else has your life path. So
hmm
using your story as as an asset for your business, if you will, because it's something that it will help you to
Right.
um, yeah, be memorable, and then also to highlight why you do this work, why you
hmm
work with a certain group of people. And I
hmm
feel that using your story for emphasizing that is really powerful in the
Yeah.
sense of you are really intentional. And I
hmm
know in some of your own content how you are talking about this, like not being generic, being
hmm
specific, and all that. I feel there with the alignment and being intentional, that's really one of the things that you can use your personal brand story for.
Yeah, totally. Like you said, there is somebody doing what you do. There are a million people who do social media, but there aren't a million people who do social media, love Garfield, like to craft, have a 5 pound Yorkie, and are a bit of a geek, right? Like that's just me. That's just me. And so I can weave that into how I think about social, how I share about social, and that's what will make it unique. That will be the different take that will have people notice.
Yeah, yeah, and something that also I read in one of your posts is about this idea of the inside jokes and
hmm
how you use them in your pieces of content as a
hmm
way
hmm
to create that connection and make your
hmm
content alive. And I feel
Yes.
that expression that feels alive. It was like so resonated. Like sometimes you're reading or getting content that feels like so playing, if you will, like
Mhm.
doesn't have these spicy,
Mhm.
juicy
Mhm.
details that makes the difference.
Yeah, and it's like that's why when you find yourself like we can all tell corporate talk, right? We can
Hmm.
when we're reading something, we're like, oh, okay, and it's dry, and we read it for use. Like, do I need to care about this? Why am I invested? It doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna keep it moving. But when it's something different, we're like, oh, and we take it a little bit deeper into us, and we figure out like, oh, I really like that, and it might turn us into a fan. It might turn us into somebody who recommends the product or the service to somebody else. And it's the part that you're like, oh, that was a really good idea. Let me share it. It's that part. Nobody ever shares the about me section on, some big brand's website because it's like, who cares? But they will share the social posts. They will share the blog post because it's slightly different and it's more alive and it's something that they're really vibing with or really excited about.
Mm, yeah. And then also this idea of how impactful content for me, yeah, the impactful can be not just for your business but also
hmm
for your audience and for
hmm hmm
yourself. I
hmm
have I remember specifically the how one of the guests of my podcast, she was sharing how sharing her own story has been part of her healing process, and how that has helped not
Mm.
just her business but herself. And
Mhm.
I feel that there is like it's impacting the three areas, because of course it's
Yeah.
impacting her business, it's making people feel relatable,
Mhm,
connect with
mhm,
her and so on. But also this idea of how your audience, maybe your story is this little push that they need
mhm,
to take action, or to think that something is possible. I have
Yeah.
seen that as well, how when people share their stories, you can
mhm,
see how, oh yeah, this is possible. And this idea of possibilities is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's really interesting because I've always thought that if you're going to build a business, you should build a business that works for you, that works around your life, that you don't, create another job for yourself that you don't like. And that just sounds like a part of it, where her business and expressing herself and really being authentic in her content was a way for her to also process things and work through things. And so that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's not like that for everyone. It
No.
doesn't need to. But I mean that to see how it can be powerful for your
mhm,
business, and how your story can be relevant for your audience, and it
mhm,
can be a way to
mhm.
highlight what makes your offer different.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
work with the 10 story connector framework. So instead of
Mhm,
looking for
mhm,
one big story, I look for these 10 meaningful
mhm,
moments. Each of them is connected to one specific key factor
mhm,
or benefit. You know why you are sharing that story. And I feel that, and I will let you know your thoughts, how for some people they feel that they don't want to be repetitive. They
mhm,
feel that they share something once and it's okay. And that I see the power of repeating yourself, in the sense of you want, there is a message that you want the people to understand. And with the
mhm.
storytelling, you can share the same story but in different ways. So I
Yes.
think that's powerful. How has been for you, and how is with your work with clients? How you handle that idea of I don't want to repeat myself?
Oh, yeah, I think it's one of the things that I even had to deal with, because I said that
Yeah.
to myself. I don't want to repeat myself. Was that nobody is in my head as much as me. And so,
Mm.
yeah, for me, it absolutely feels like I am talking about this way too much. But everybody else has full lives. They're trying to figure out dinner. They're trying to close a client project. They're sending out invoices. They're doing all these things. And so, while for me, it might feel like, oh my goodness, I've talked about it. For them, it is 1/1 millionth of the things that they're working through today. And so the more you talk about it, the better. It's like, yeah, it's just one of those things where there actually isn't too much, because there's a lot of things that people are doing. And so this might be the way that they can, like, oh, I've been meaning to do that. Okay, useful.
Mm.
Thanks. So yeah, absolutely. But I've totally battled through myself and clients of like, I'm talking about this too much. You don't even know if they saw it the first 20 times. Okay. So go
Yeah.
ahead and do it another time.
You know what I say to people that feel that way, as a way to not prove them wrong, but make
Mhm.
him think about it in a different angle,
Right.
is like, okay, go to your own content that you created.
Mhm.
Look for something that you said 6 months ago, or write 6 months ago. I am sure
Yes.
there's something there that you will read or listen to, and think about, wow, that was actually brilliant. I didn't remember me saying that. So, and it's your own content that went out of yourself. Imagine other people. So yeah, totally agree that repetition is key for really like making your message in sync and making people impact
Yeah.
with your message.
No, I love that, because I absolutely have done that. I'm like, oh my goodness, I wrote that. Oh wow. Like, so yeah, it definitely has that. And it's so funny. This will make sense if anybody has a pet. If you have a pet, you probably, on the conservative side, have 100 pictures of your pet in your phone. And you will continue to take pictures every day, because you're like, oh no, no, this part was cute. Oh, look at the little paw. That was cute. And you won't tire of it. And when you go back through your pictures, you will love every single picture, and you won't delete any of them because they're different. And I think once you finally really tap into your authentic self and the core of who you are, your content will be like that. It will absolutely be, the same dog in every picture. It will be the same pillar in every piece of content. But because you talk about it slightly differently, because it's a different angle, everyone will add to the overall impact, and you will love every piece, and every piece will land with people differently.
Mm, yeah, and then also how we evolve and how our
Yes.
businesses evolves and how
Yes.
our content will evolve with that, our messaging will evolve with that. And I
Yeah.
love how with people that I have worked with, and then after
Hmm.
a while they have doing some kind of pivoting or their business is evolving,
Yes.
how some of the stories are still relevant, but the angle will be a bit different because there's
Hmm.
something else to highlight now. So
Yeah.
this idea of how when
Hmm.
you practice, when you keep sharing your
Hmm.
messaging and especially your personal brand stories, is like, okay, then I know how to articulate that in a way that will
Right.
help my business to thrive and will help me
Hmm.
to share with people what makes my approach unique. Because
Yeah.
again, not just there are different people offering something similar all the time, someone else will have a different approach. For you is
Hmm.
something important and maybe they focus in something else, and then sharing that is helping the people to make the decision. Okay, this is the right fit, this is what I am looking for, this is
Yep.
someone that we will connect and we will work well together, because you know how it is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I like that. And I'm wondering, so how, because I know how I sort of kind of incorporate AI to like get get out of my head of, like, especially when I'm like, oh, I've talked about this too much. What are different ways that I can
Mm.
talk about it? So how do you go through that process with your clients? Like, are you like AI first and then we draft, or you give AI, or do you not use it? And like, how do you work through that?
Mm. Since I do the one-on-one intensive
Hmm.
service,
Hmm.
usually what we do is first exploring their journey, identifying
Hmm.
these 10 meaningful moments and how they are connected to these 10 key factors. And then we have a session where they practice how to share the
Mm.
story, like in a verbal way. So they are
Hmm.
telling that
Hmm.
story.
Hmm.
And depending on what is the main focus later, because for some of them is creating maybe their
Hmm.
LinkedIn posts, or for some of
Hmm.
them is more like going to podcast interviews. So depending
Hmm.
on what is their main focus, we will practice having that in mind
Hmm.
and thinking about, okay, what different angles you can share. For example, the
Um,
same story you can start like in the middle of the action and
right,
share it
right.
from there, or you can start with the benefits and then from the benefits go into the story as a bridge. So we practice the
Mm.
different ways. I like to bring them ideas and examples of how they can share the same story in different ways,
Mhm.
and we practice through that session in
Mhm.
making them think about that in different yeah, as I said, like different
Mhm.
angles, different way of sharing the same story as well, because you know
Mhm.
you have the same story, but depending on who you are telling that story, you
Yes.
tell it different. Depending on
Mhm.
which is the platform, maybe you adjust certain things. So,
Mhm.
yeah. What about you? How is your process with clients about around telling their stories and incorporating them in their content?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's who you're talking to dependent, right? Because like you said, it could be the same story, but there'll be different things that are highlighted are important, or the outcome. There's a
Mm,
certain outcome you want, so you might shift the story to really emphasize a portion to like, hey, and this is what your next step is, or blah 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 blah. And so I think that for me, it's definitely about looking at those two things first. And then from there, whether it's AI, whether it's talking, whether it's writing it out, that's where, whatever mode we use after that, that's up in the air. But the two important things are, who are we talking to, or what is the outcome that we want? And then everything shifts from there.
yeah, I love that approach. For me, one of the things is like when I start working with someone,
Hmm.
before they start telling me about their journey, the first question will
Hmm.
be who are
Hmm.
their audience and what are they offering? What is the
Right.
transformation? What is the solution that they are providing? Because having that in mind before exploring the journey for me is super important
Right.
because that will tell what to focus on, because otherwise,
Right.
and what kind of stories can be more relevant for this specific group of people. So I totally agree on that aspect. I feel
Mhm.
that for that, the idea of strategic storytelling is not
Mhm.
just telling a story, having an
Yes.
interesting way of telling the story and making entertaining or appealing or surprising, but also that strategy part, like, okay,
Mhm.
what is the intention, what is the goal? Especially I
Yes.
work with businesses, so this is a tool for their business, so having that in mind is really important for me as well.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I think, and then I think that one of the things that I think sometimes I see people do on my end is they'll default to AI or the default to what it says. And I think that's a misstep, especially when it comes to your personal story, your personal brand, because how you language something and the specific phrase or words that you use might be integral to the story. And so AI might say, well, this is what other people say. This is how other people do it. It's like, no, 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 no. I want to share how I said it and how I do it. And so I think it's really important to always make sure that when you're working with this tool, that you treat it as a tool and not as something that knows better than you about you.
Yeah, 100%. This is something that I have, even myself questioning how I
Hmm.
use the tools,
Hmm.
and that is like, okay, I start the basic of the concept is from me, it's from something that I have said, created or
Hmm.
something. And then from there, maybe I use the tools to help me to maybe
Hmm.
repurposing or things like that. But the base of the concepts is something that I feel is really important and came from you. And
Hmm.
then maybe you can use as a tool, as you said, is just one tool. Like before we didn't have Canva, and now we have the
Right.
templates from Canva.
Exactly.
Now you don't need to learn Photoshop. Photoshop. You can use that. It's a
Right.
tool that can help you in certain ways. So how you use the tool, that's the important part in my
Hmm.
opinion. How you make sure that, yeah, you are not just blending yourself because you are using AI as to create your content, and
Hmm.
that sounds generic or is not having your personal touch on it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I and it's always interesting because um when I on LinkedIn, one of the things that I see that I've always really curious about is LinkedIn has very interesting archetypes of stories, right? And one of the archetypes that people love to hate is the one where I was walking and I tripped down the stairs, and let me tell you the five things that taught me about business, right? Like I was brushing my teeth in the morning. Let me tell you the five things that taught me about business. And it's interesting because I think at one point it was really great. I think at one point it was interesting, and I think that it just goes back to um, your story is always going to be your story, but how it can show up is different. How it can
Mm.
show up is going to change, and so you can always keep your story and then change how you share about it because it might not be you share it that way because people are tired of it. You might share it a different way, but still achieve the same results.
Yeah, and I feel I really hear you with this idea of how it feels sometimes forced, that they
Hmm.
are trying to force these storytelling arcs, and
Right.
it's like, yeah, you can feel it
Right.
when you are reading something like that. How is just you have this story here, and
Hmm.
then you are forcing this because that's what you want to share, even if
Right.
you are not looking for the collection. I feel that
Right.
when that's something key, at least that's the way I see it, is like when you see the natural connection between those, it's
Hmm.
like you have this set of stories and then you use them as you need, but
Hmm.
you are confident
Yes.
about the
Yes.
connection,
Yes.
and
Exactly.
you really feel like, yeah, this
Mhm.
is something that I share confidently because it's
Right.
not I am trying to force here. It's like, yeah,
Right.
I know that it is a
Right.
way to share this that can be helpful and can be, again, in my opinion, is trying to help the audience to understand
Mhm.
what is your message, what is important for you, what is your approach. So this idea of, it's not that you are forcing them to sell to buy from
Right.
you, is for them to have the information about how you do things, and maybe
Exactly.
you are the right person to help me. I would love to work with you, but
Yeah.
first I will need to have this feeling of how it's going to be
Mhm.
working with you, and how are
Mhm.
you as a person as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I love it. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So I want to know because usually I feel like sometimes when we say content, we tend to think about social media,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it can be other formats as
Hmm.
well. So I would love to know. I know that you have your agency. I would love to know if you are supporting people in different type of content, or it's mostly about social media. What is usually the case for you?
Definitely the strong suit is social media content. I work with others when people want to expand into long form video, long form written, like blog posts, newsletters, things like that. And I think that they all support each other, right? It's all
Mm.
one big ecosystem. I love it when people are like, I have a social and I also have a newsletter, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't own social. We don't own these platforms. And these platforms could do whatever they want in the best interest of their business, which might not be the best interest of your business. And so it's really important to make sure that when you want to talk to your people, that you have multiple ways to talk to them.
Mm. Yeah, I like that a lot because it's like how the different pieces of the ecosystem,
Mhm.
how they work together, and also because
Mhm.
I love repurposing, of course, is like how when you create a piece of content in any form, how you
Mhm.
can use that as the base for changing the
Anything else?
format or
Mhm.
creating something from there. So I feel that's
Mhm.
really powerful as well, especially I work a lot with solopreneurs, small
Mhm.
business owners, so limited capacity. So you need
Right.
to be really intentional about how you use your resources, and
Mhm.
resources in the way of money, time, energy, not just
Mhm.
like the economical stuff. So yeah, I don't know how is the what is the usual case that the people that you work with, what is the case for them?
No, I have always been a proponent of reusing and repurposing content. One, because it's effective, and like you said, it saves time on your resources, but also everybody does it. Like this is not like repurposing and reusing content is not an indicator that you are a small business.
Oh
It's not an
yes.
indicator that you don't have the capacity. It's an indicator that you're running a business because we all know there are commercials we see, like the Cadbury Easter Bunny commercial that happens every year, or the commercial that happens from Hershey's or Coca Cola during Christmas time. There are commercials that we see that they reuse every year that are 10, 15 years old. The M&Ms, those are old commercials. They haven't produced new ones recently and they still run them. And it's just an indicator of what works in business, not a deficit that you have.
Mm. I really appreciate that angle because yeah, I think you are totally right. It's a way we are not content creators, we are
Mhm.
business owners. So
Right.
our business is not create content. That's one of the things that we need to do or we can do, but it's not the main concept of our business in general.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah. So I wonder if you have one specific example or idea on
Mhm.
how one story, maybe from yourself, maybe from a client, that was
Mhm.
you could really see the impact for when they shared those stories.
I think I had a client last year where the stories were already poignant. They were breast cancer stories, right? So they were already going to tug on the heartstrings. But when you couple like wanting them to tug on the heartstrings, but also donate to the nonprofit, that's where we really had to look at. All right, we can tell good stories and make people cry, make people share. That's great. That's wonderful, but how can we tell the story such that people donate or take action? And
Mm,
that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And that's what businesses look for. Businesses, whether it's clients, whether it's people signing up to a newsletter, it's like, how do my stories actually convert? And so when we looked at how do we share stories that actually convert, it's stories of hope. It's stories with a solution. It's stories where people could see that there's actually an end in mind or a solution in mind that have people be like, okay, great. I see what the purpose is. I see what my money contributes to versus just open ended stories. And so I think that's applicable to all businesses, nonprofit or for profit, where people need to see the solution. They need to see at the end of the road, okay, so this is how it's going to impact me. I see
Mm.
what this is doing, because great stories are great stories, but great stories are reserved for, or great stories without a purpose are reserved for content creators, because that's that we show up for great stories and we get our great stories. But if you're a business owner, you want a great story that converts. And so you've got to look at it slightly differently. And it's like, okay, what's going to have people take action? It's that solution that they can see that will have them be like, okay, I can see that you are going to make a difference. I see the great story, but I see how that story aligns with me and how it'll impact me and what I'm concerned with.
Mm, absolutely. This idea of how one story can help them to take action, and
Hmm.
how using storytelling as a way to convert, in the sense of
Hmm.
getting people to do an action that
Hmm.
what is the goal of this piece of content, right? It can be
Right.
buying, but it can be donate, as the example that you're saying. It can be
Hmm.
something else that you want them to do. What is the next
Hmm.
step that you want them to do? Because maybe it's
Right.
your social media and you want to move them to your personal environment and go
Right.
into your website or download something. So it doesn't need to be only buying something. It's like, what is
Hmm.
the next step that you want them to do?
Yes. Yes. And also, this is just another thing that I think sometimes people forget, because I forget. Stories don't have to be long. You
Yes,
can have a story in 3 sentences. They
yes.
don't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs to like get the idea across. You could have wonderful and interesting stories in 3 sentences.
Yes. And something that I really like is when you use, and this I feel is connected to the idea of the inside jokes. When you create these loops, you open or
Mm.
you mention just one story that there you are not going into depth, but in
Hmm.
another piece of content, in another moment, you are
Hmm.
sharing that story. So for people that are new to your world, they have like this little clue there for later in
Hmm.
another moment to keep learning
Hmm.
about you. But for people that know you, this is a reminder of that story that you have told
Yes.
them in another way. So
Yep.
again, this idea of like, it's not that your story need to be linear, it's not that your
Right.
story need to be long, and also related to privacy, you don't need to go into private details. You can
You
go
don't.
superficial level, you can go into depth. So again, that's something that I always like to highlight, how you are the one in control and
Hmm.
deciding what you share and what not, and
Hmm.
what level of detail you want to bring and
Right.
how you do it. So use that control in the sense of being intentional, and use
Yes.
it in a way that is going to be like more impactful for you, for your
Mhm.
business, and for your audience.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, I am curious about, because one of the things that I work with clients is how sometimes they have moments in their journey that are really something that to me is like really powerful to share,
Mhm.
but they
Mhm.
have might overlook. And I have a
Yes.
specific example from a client of mine. She's a copywriter for fashion brands,
Mhm.
and we were working together on her story, her personal brand story. At some point, I asked her, "What was your relationship with fashion as a kid?"
Mhm.
And I was thinking maybe she was going to tell me about making little dresses for her dolls or something like that. But she really surprised me. And she mentioned, "Yeah, I remember being under the sewing table of my mom because she's a tailor. My grandpa was a tailor." So she grew up in a family of tailor.
Yeah.
Like, how that was connected to the high quality, sustainable kind of brands
Mhm.
that she worked
Mhm.
with, and how that was something that she was seeing in her all her life. She never had thought of sharing that because that was so natural for her,
Mhm.
and also because
Mhm.
she was looking for stories related to writing because she was a
Right.
copywriter. So
Right.
her focus was on that, and to me that moment made me chill because it was like,
Mhm.
wow, if she has overlooked this so visual story
Yeah.
also, is like how other people might be overlooking these amazing stories that make you not just
Exactly.
impactful because you are sharing your values, I highlighted
Hmm.
that, but also memorable because yeah, there is not a lot of people that will have that same situation, right? So
No, yeah.
how has been your experience? Do you remember someone like again overlooking something that was like, wow?
Oh gosh, I just had one and it slipped my mind. Of course it did. So what I will say though is that I think that is like what if people don't have the pleasure of working with you, one of the things that they can do is
Mhm.
look at their analytics. So your analytics on social will tell you because if you're writing content consistently, there will be times where you'll put something out there, you'll be like, "Ugh, I don't care about this," and then it'll do really well. And you're like, why did it do really well? This is confusing. I wasn't even talking about my business. And so
Mm.
that is the yellow flag or the green flag to explore further, to figure out was it the story? Was it how you told it? What part of it resonated with people? And that's another way that you can discover those not big stories, not the grandiose stories, but those ones that are really rich and really impactful that you glance over because you lived through it and you're like, that's nothing. Nobody cares about that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of going and checking what has been like more reactive from people and
Hmm.
getting that
Hmm.
information as well. I really like that. And then something else is how, for example, you are sharing the same like different pieces of your own story and
Hmm.
things like that, and then
Hmm.
seeing how even when you share the same story, sometimes you are sharing in a way
Yeah.
and the people are reacting more than when you are sharing in
Hmm.
another way, so you are getting
Yeah.
information from there.
Yeah.
And this can be in the content in social media, for example, but also if you are just sharing with someone, if you are having a
Hmm.
sales call, and how
Yeah.
there you see the reaction, you see how they want to
Yes.
learn more and how that help them to also something else. I don't know if that has been your experience, how sharing your story can be a way also to create a space where your client or your potential
Hmm.
client feels safe to share with you their story.
Yes. Yeah. I think, yeah, because I think, especially if you're doing something like copywriting or you're working in a service capacity with a business owner, that it's really important that they tap into who they are. It
Mm.
is important that they're comfortable with you. It is important that they open up and share because if she didn't feel comfortable with you, she might have been like, "Oh, I'm not going to share with you about my parents and what I did as a kid. That's weird. I'll just share what I did after college, or I'll just share what I did." And so, yeah, I think it is really important because it gives people the opportunity to be like, "Oh, this is just a cool person I'm getting to work with. Okay, great." And then they'll share and they'll open up, and then you don't. The serendipity of it all will magically come together.
Mm. This is something that I have thought a lot about because I feel so lucky just to be
Mm-hmm.
like listening to people's stories. So as a kid, I love stories. I have it. I remember when they opened the first public library, and I was like, "Oh, I am going to get all these books to read," and that. And I was one of the first people going to taking the library card. So I've been like loving stories all the time. So now I
Mm-hmm.
feel super lucky because I am just here listening to people's stories, to people's
Mm-hmm.
journeys, and helping them to see what can be something interesting to share and how can be
Mm-hmm.
related to what they say, what they sell, what they offer. So I don't take it for granted what you just said
Mm-hmm.
of how they are so generous sharing with me their journeys,
Yeah.
because there are certain
Mm-hmm.
things that they are not going to share publicly, but they are sharing
Right.
with me to go through the process and to really understand what
Mm-hmm.
has been their journey, because there are
Mm-hmm.
maybe one big pivotal moment they are not,
Mm-hmm.
this is something private, they are not going to share publicly, but
Mm-hmm.
with the work that you we do is something that makes sense
Yeah.
for us to
Mhm.
talk about. So I always feel like really like grateful for this generosity of
Yeah.
someone is opening their stories to me, their generosity. And that's why I also value and appreciate this idea of feeling safe, because as you
Mhm.
said, if you are not feeling safe, you are not going to share in that way. And
Right.
I know that with you, for example, since it's a more like not intensive way, but you are
Mhm.
working with them in like more
Mhm.
long
Mhm.
term, I guess like it's going to progress that relationship,
Yeah.
how the
Yeah.
stories are shared and all that, right?
Yeah, because it's one of those things, like you said earlier, where things grow and change, right? And how it is in the beginning, because who you are when you have to do a thing for yourself, whether it's social media, whether it's copywriting, whether it's bookkeeping, when you have to do it yourself, you'll do it a certain way when it's not your lane. You'll do it a certain way. But when you get to hand it off to somebody and then they get to do it and they love to do it, how you are about that thing in your business changes because you're freed up now. And so instead of being like, oh, I don't want to look at my books or I don't want to post anything, now you're like, oh, let me go look at these analytics. Oh, let me go see how things are because you don't have to do it. So even in that, you change and your relationship to it changes. And then it opens up possibilities because now you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, now that I don't dread looking at my P&L statement every day or every month, let me look at it and figure out what I'm going to do for my Q2 revenue plan. Let me figure that out
Mm.
because now you have the brain capacity to do it, and then it grows from there. And so when you don't have to do something that's not your lane, you get to expand into other areas of your business and really deep dive. And I think that's always cool. But also, for better or for worse, I know, at least I'll just say me, I get excited when I get to work with people who are passionate about their thing
Yeah.
because they're passionate about their thing. Like I don't hate numbers, but I don't wake up thinking about my bookkeeping. I'm not like, hey, it sounds like a fun Friday night activity. Not my bookkeeping, right? But I have a bookkeeper who like so so excited about it. I'm like, oh, maybe this could be exciting. And I'm like, no, it's not exciting, but I'm glad you're doing it. And so I think that's another thing. It's just I like to work with people who love the thing that they do. Because I'm like, oh,
Mm.
that's really cool that you love it. I don't, but that's really cool that you like it. And it brings something to the space.
Yeah, yeah, I love that what you said because it's like, yeah, we're so like each person has different interests, and some
Hmm.
person will love numbers, and some other will be, oh, I don't know which how to do some picture together and make a
Mhm.
sense of that visually, and others are like more into the concept. So this like
Yep.
the beauty, like finding someone that is going to complement
Mhm.
your skills and is going to help you in that way. So they are taking
Yeah.
out of something that you don't want to do, or you are not
Right.
good at, or you prefer not to do, and then it's happy getting someone that is really, you can feel it, like, yeah, they are really
Yes.
passionate about
You
this.
can. You can feel it so yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so nice. Okay, so before we wrap up, I don't know if there is something that we haven't mentioned but you feel like it's something that, a message that you want to convey to the people listening.
I think really just to encapsulate the whole conversation, I think what's important is that when you tell your story, that you really tell your story,
Mm,
and you really, really stay true to what it is, and don't let those people don't let whoever they is don't let they or ChatGPT say here's a better way to do it. If it's your story, it's your story. And there's something about how you share it and how you talk about it that's the richness in it. That's the storytelling in it. And it can refine it and everything. But I really think that this year, what's going to be really important, and various heads of platforms of social media have said it, is that originality,
mm,
authenticity, and that can only come from you.
mm. Yeah, that's brilliant. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's like you don't need to pretend to be someone else.
No,
You don't need to force yourself into something and sharing something that you don't feel comfortable with,
exactly.
but you need to share who you are, and you need to convey who you are as a way
Mhm.
for people to understand that, yeah, this is someone that I want to work with. So
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I always like to ask the people that came to these live chats for a way to summarize the
Mhm.
intersection between personal brand story and, in this case, impactful content. What will be like one or from 1 to 3 words to
Mhm.
summarize that for you.
I can do a sentence. Your personal
Yeah,
brand
yeah, it's
story
good.
is the foundation of impactful content.
Nice, nice. For me, I will highlight how using your personal brand story for creating impactful content can
Mhm.
be a way to make yourself memorable and to move
Mhm.
people to take action.
Mhm.
Again, I also went more than 2 words, but we can break the rules because we did it. Uh, but yeah, I feel that the idea of how when you share your story, it's going to be a way for the people to really know more about you, to
Mhm.
really remember you in a different way, and then can be that motivation, that little push to take action to
Mhm.
the next step. So I feel that that's really powerful. So thank you so much. This has been so fun. I think we can have more
Right.
time and we will go different directions, but for now I think we will keep it here. How people that they want to learn more about the work that you do and how you can help them, where they can find you.
Yeah, as always on LinkedIn, Tamay Shannon. I'm the only one. So and then on Instagram, if you are an Instagrammer, it's W2S Marketing.
Amazing. I'm sure I am making sure that the links are in the show notes in the description, so it's easy for them to go reach out. Also, if the people listening they have any comments or any thought after listening to this conversation, please go to the comments and mention us. So we love to keep the conversation going.
Yes, 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 absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and until next time.
Okay, sounds good.